Thank you for coming. I am really thrilled to be here. I was here last year, and I presented a paper that I published in the Community College Journal of Research and Practice. And the paper was towards a predictive model of community college success in blended or hybrid, as we call it, our campus courses. And what I'm going to present today, I hope will be submitted to this journal in a few days. And it comes out of this study. I looked at 7 factors. Grades on the first online quiz, and the grades are, it's a multiple choice quiz from the publisher's test bank. It's done at the 4th week. Students actually get 3 attempts at the quiz, and each time they're doing a different quiz. And I like it because it gives them incentive to read the textbook. And I do have OERs on my quiz that I do. Grades on extra credit assignments. I give 3 orientation assignments due by the first 2 weeks. These are extra credit. 1 point is added to students' grades if they take an orientation quiz, practice taking quiz, and the quiz is on my course outline. So they get to know things that I will not accept, papers. They have a 1 point opportunity to have a discussion board. I get to know students, my students get to know each other, and having these interactions with student to student and student to professor is really important. And then the third thing is to get 3 points for that, and that is the college's e-learning readiness program. I'll admit I wrote the first draft of that. Dennis Spahar, who's sitting right now in another room, actually put it online. And this basically trains students about what they need to do to succeed in their online. The other things, gender, using me first, traditional binary classifications didn't predict. And that surprised me because teaching for a fairly long time, teaching partial online classes for a long time, teaching at a graduate level fully on asynchronous courses, I kind of think that women do better than men. And I was surprised that gender didn't predict until I started digging into logistic regression, also, quote unquote dummy variable, yes or no. The literature, the academic literature supports the hypothesis that women are more involved in their learning. So I thought I should go back to that. And one of the things I was concerned about going into the data that I had for the article I published last year was the power of the test. Do I have a big enough sample size? So as I am doing this, I'm still teaching these courses, so I updated the data. I added 4 more classes. My classes are Introduction to Marketing, which is taught 3 hours a week, 1 hour online. I'm sorry, 2 hours online, 1 hour face-to-face, and marketing research. So my data goes for a fairly long time, from fall 2012 through spring of 2017, 19 partially online classes. Our online classes, by the way, are capped. Sometimes I don't get them. I have 435 students in my sample, 237 males, 198 females, which is not like the college. College is more female than male, but apparently the business department tends to see more male than female. And I added 1 more thing from the first. The cumulative GPA before the day before the semester starts. I wanted to see if that was improved. Data shows, on average, female students outperform their male counterparts. And the question for me is, do female students have higher self-regulated learning than male students? I don't have psychometric data, and self-regulated learning is a psychometric concept. And I'll talk about that in a second. So this is a leap of faith, and is it justifiable? Barry Zimmerman said, 30 years ago, students can be described as self-regulated to the degree to which they are metacognitively, motivationally, and behaviorally active participants in their own learning process. That's metacognition. Three critical factors of self-regulated learning. Students' self-regulated learning strategies. Do they plan for their success? My problem is, when I teach an online course, I play two roles, which I don't want to play. Overindulgent mommy. Oh dear, next Thursday you have science. And then I do 2 or 3 of these. And then I play strict authoritarian father. You didn't turn in the assignment? Go to your room, you're punished. 0. I don't do either one of those. But I fall into that trap. Students' perceptions of their own self-efficacy. And finally, their commitment to their academic goals. So, do female students evidence more self-regulated learning than male students? This is a retrospective study. I can't go back and survey these students. All I can do is look for the evidence. So I think I have objective surrogates. I'll go through those objective surrogates. My 2 independent variables are extra credit points earned and the pre-semester GPA. And an dependent variable would be the adjusted grade averages for the course. The adjusted grade average means I pulled out the extra. So, better students, by the way, are more likely to complete extra credit. That's what the literature says. That's what I found. And it was kind of shocking when I first, oh my gosh, it's true. I would think that if I'm struggling and my professor says I can add 5 points to my final average, I would jump at it. My B and A students jump. My students who are B's, F's, and withdrawals. So, do female students earn higher letter grades? So, this is the breakdown of grades. A's, B's, C's, D's, F's, and withdrawals. WN is not included in this, but W's and W's are. So I did a chi-square contingency table analysis, and guess what? I have a ton of statistical power, and I have a really low p-value. The distribution of grades for male students and grades for female students doesn't fit. Female students, just look at you, double the number of A's, and yet they're a much lower proportion of the total sample. Female students are doing better. Do female students earn higher adjusted averages? And by the way, my averages are really low. The reason why they're really low, I have students who withdraw. So if a student withdraws in the 2nd or 3rd week in class, hasn't built up much of a grade. My data, by the way, is not normally distributed. So I used, instead of a 2-sample t-test, I use a Kurzweil-Wallace test. And my results have really strong statistical power and a low p-value. Guess what? Female students are earning significantly higher grade averages. Do female students have higher cumulative GPAs? I'm going to go out on a limb here. And by the way, I had a long conversation with an old friend from graduate school who's a feminist theorist. And so am I going to get in trouble saying this? I don't think that male students and female students are intellectually different in terms of their intellectual horsepower. They may learn differently, but I think, if you give them a standard IQ test, they probably perform fairly similar. But female students have a higher GPA when they come into the course. And the Kurzweil-Wallace test says that this is a significant difference. That tells me, again, that female students are more involved in their education. They're making more plans. I think they're making more plans. We'll talk about how I and how you as an instructor can see within the brain, see within the mind, see the motivations of our students. And then I wonder, should we even pay? So, do female students earn more extra credit points? Credit points go from 0 to 5. And again, another personal wild house, oh my gosh, less than 1 in 1,000 chance that this is just sampling error difference. Female students are earning more extra credits. So, conclusions. Female students outperform their male students on objective measures. And by the way, how many of you are instructors? Do you grade your students in how they think and feel about their education? Do you grade them on objective performance, how they did on a paper, how they did on an exam? Objective measures, right? As in someone in the field, I believe in self-regulated learning. Just like I believe in democracy. Just like I believe my wife loves me. But I may not have a statistically valid and reliable survey to do that. But I have objective performance. Without psychometric data, females more self-regulated than males. It's only a hypothesis. Only a hypothesis. But I'll accept that as an educated guess that maybe someone can validate with empirical research. Maybe. Talk about some of my failures in that area in a second. Do instructors need to know if students are self-regulated? I don't think so, because I'm going to be grading, and I think you're going to be grading stuff on the quality of the work they turned in, not on what they think. Now, there are some really good surveys that have been vetted for reliability and validity on self-regulated learning, and also community inquiry presence, which includes a lot of self-regulated learning behaviors. Philip Ice has one, Peter Shea, and I wrote an article with Peter a few years ago. And the problem with these measures are there's some educated opinion, there's some articles out there who says that these things are not good predictors of student success. And two, students' subjective attitudes about their learning may not be that accurate. Give you an example. Last fall, I had a student, and he's not from the static, comes to me early on and says, I really want to do a wellness class. Takes my marketing research course this spring. He said, this semester it's going to be better. And for a week it was better. No, he's doing the same stuff in the future. So the fact that he says to himself, I'm going to be, in essence, self-regulated, great. But not the fact. And I think there's a question about self-regulation. Do the students actually have a good evaluation of themselves? Big question for us is how, I suspect that if I were to talk to you before, during, or after this presentation, you would probably think, oh yeah, I believe in self-regulated learning. I believe it's important. Online courses, we believe that a student has to be self-regulated. But how do we test it? One of the ways that I try to do it, and I don't know whether I'm successful, is I have students write reflective essays. And that's something that we stress on our campus. I want the training to be someone who's capable of teaching a writing-intensive course. Students have to write reflective essays. So I used to have them do 4 reflective essays, because I had 4 or 5 modules, each module reflective essay. I found it to be kind of repetitive and not very reflective. So I do one at the start of the semester where I ask students, what do you fear about taking this course? What strategies you'll use to make sure you succeed? And then I do one at the last week of the semester, basically asking, now that you finished the course, what do you think feel? So here's part of the problem. Students drop out from all reasons. I've had a lot of students come to me with tears in their eyes, showing me portraits of their kid who's now sick, showing me pictures of a parent who lives across the Atlantic or down below the equator. I have to drop out. I had a woman come to me with bruises and saying, my husband's beating me, I've got to leave him. these psychometric surveys was that the owl of the nerve that takes flight and flight. I'm going to do this after they have some experience in the course. A lot of these little owls do the poop. So I am really skeptical about survey research. The research we did with Peter Shea's instrument, I did this with Amy Trader on our campus, who's brilliant sociologist. We found a lot of non-response. Internet and higher education, God bless them, published our paper. I was worried about publication bias because we didn't find anything significant. Students who dropped out had no difference in their opinions of the community quality, community of inquiry presence, regardless of the grades. They were all the same. I thought it would be different if people would perceive the difference. By the way, all my courses, like all the courses in our campus, are vetted continuously by the instructor using quality matters. Quality matters is very similar to the community inquiry rubric. I look at the presences that students will have with each other. I look at the presences they will have with me. And it's not just me qua instructor designer, but it's me as an active force in the face-to-face class and on grading papers. I never let my students wait more than 48 hours. We almost done? Well, if you have any questions, 5 minutes. 5 minutes, great. I was looking for like, am I just talking too much? Sorry. Questions for me, please. Yes. You know, I wanted to add age, but that requires me to go back to our database programmers and get them to do it. Don't go back and do it. I kind of believe that adult learners are better. And that right now is, well, yes. I don't have any data to prove that, but here's what I do. I talk to my students all the time. And I get a student who's 26, 27, 33 years old, and they're really sharp, they're really involved. And I say, well, what happened to you? Why are you coming to college now? And the typical answer is, well, I was at X, Y, and Z 4-year school. Some of them were pretty good 4-year school. I know you, and I partied, and I played around, and I talked out. My friends said, never again will we spend $50,000 a year on you for an education. And we just, screw around. So they get jobs, and they struggle, and they say, I need to get an education. And they come back and they leave. I've seen that over and over. So I think age will be important. You know, when I did the article last year, I was thinking, what information do I have that would help me see what fits for my students? And I didn't have GPA, but we use Starfish, and the Starfish was mentioned in the last presentation. And I use Starfish more than I'm told to use. And I liked the data. And all of a sudden I see GPA. Wow, isn't that cool? And I have maybe 2 years worth of students with GPA. And I talked to some of the people who handle community first in our campus. Anyway, I could use a list of my students in my class and can get them to GPA. And I wondered for the semester before they took the class, how much the students in there. I don't know. When I look at Starfish, I don't believe I see age. And besides age, I want to know if they have kids in the house. Right? When I see a student come to me and crying because she has a bruise and her husband is using her, or she's got to go back to Poland because she has an parent who is deathbed, or she shows me the picture of her kid who's now in the hospital, I kind of believe it. By the way, all those students who come to me with those stories, I won't tell you this. because you might be teaching sexual harassment. Got some really, really bizarre stories this past week. I had a talk really well because I had to take this medication. And I'm telling you why I'm taking medication, but they're coming to me like sons come to father. And maybe their father should have talked about various activities that they should not do. More questions? Yes. I think very often with extra credit, students who don't avail themselves of it, it's that the reason that they're not doing well is that they're already so overwhelmed that to offer 5 more points is to suggest doing another assignment, which is I don't really think so. But I think when I look at and I don't have the data, that was in the article. If I look at extra credit points by the 4 grading levels, there's a real correlation, statistic correlation. Students with A's do get work, B's, B students get more than C students. So I think there might be something here about self-regulating. I have students who are doing far too much of those. And I don't know, I had a student who failed one of my tests 2 weeks ago. I said, I have 4 other tests. So that they and so they should be able to think. Yeah, I'm sounding so much authoritarian there. Yes.
I have many thoughts. I'll try to keep them brief. One is, I think it's easy to sort of mix anecdotal stories with
but my dad is not
data, right? But I think like when you're saying one with the dad on the mom, like I'm a little hesitant to bring that into a presentation like this, only because I think the issues that many of our male students are struggling with are issues that, like, they might say it's because they have a test, but really they're in court over a pending court case where they're involved in the criminal justice system, and because of their socialization and the way that they were raised and the world that they operate in, like, they're never going to tell us what's really going on in their life, right? And so it might be less about self-regulated learning than it might be, more this kind of cultural capital where they have metacognitive ability to understand what's going on, but they're not going to tell you, right? But secondly, I think the big question you have is really important, and it doesn't, at that point, if you're creating a classroom where students have the ability to say do a tiered assignment, where if they want to go for the A, they can do these, X, Y, and Z. If they're okay with the B, they can do X and Y. They're okay with the C, they just do Y, right? And measuring things in that way, because extra credit is typically one of those all or nothing. They do it or they don't, especially if it's take this quiz based on my syllabus or something like that. I'm wondering if different types of, because we're using that as a variable, correct? Different types of variables, or, we mentioned use OER, something where, there's more of a longitudinal chance for students to do above and beyond what they're asking in the class. And I'm also wondering if you could briefly talk about how you see your data being important as a business professor in teaching female students about career readiness. So they're outperforming their male counterparts in the classroom, probably at the college, but when they enter into the business world, they're going to be making less money than their male counterparts. They're going to be less likely to get promoted than their male counterparts, and sometimes it's because they have children, right? And so, the divide in the business world is larger than in most other fields.
Yeah. I have one student, she's not doing partial enrollment. Really great student, incredibly shy. She's one of my honors. We're telling her, gotta get out there, we gotta fight against shyness. I know this person. Job readiness means you get stuck on all the time. Okay, I was in marketing in the city 20 late. So strict authoritarian father, I don't accept the assignments. I sometimes delay my due dates based on my
Authoritarian mother.
But and then I also remind them when the assignments are due. And I get the feeling that the class is in there, not a particular student because he or she may have a problem with the criminal justice system. And they extend it to everyone, not for a particular student. And by the way, the student I was referring to both classes, I know he doesn't have a problem with criminal justice system because his mother is an intended I think we're done. Oh, one more question.
I have a question, but just curiosity. The ratio of female male students in community college is 64 more or less.
Yeah.
But I see in your data that you have more male than female.
Yeah, and I think
This
it's
is
my
a
department.
business. This is a business question in the field.
I'm sorry, I have to leave the.
Okay.
The session is over.
Okay.
And we have to move out and